So, in this session, ladies, I want to talk about rejection in marriage. And so, rejection in marriage, it hits different. It's not just a no or a cold shoulder, it's a wound. And that wound cuts deep. It cuts mentally, it cuts emotionally, and it cuts spiritually. I know this pain firsthand because I lived it. Um, it made me question my worth. It made me question my beauty. It made me question my purpose. And it made me wonder, why am I not enough for the one person who vowed to love me? And so, with this session, I want you all to know if you're feeling rejected in your marriage, you're not alone. And this pain, it doesn't define you. And so, let me just give you a little backstory. I faced rejection for many years in my marriage. I was confused because he would always tell me that he had no complaints about our relationship. And so I faced infidelity and rejection, which both made me very insecure. Um, they say the pain of heartbreak is equivalent to to actual physical pain, like a stab wound. And I can tell you, I would literally feel a piercing pain shoot through my chest area, certain times of day, um, following infidelity and heartbreak in my marriage. Um, and I can say a year before we separated, um, I went to the doctor and the doctor put a heart monitor on me. And that heart monitor, I had to wear it for a whole month. It was attached to a like a pager, and it would send signals of what's going on with my heart because I was having heart pains, and they never discovered what was causing the pain. You know, so it's it could literally be like an actual physical wound. It's a physical pain. Anyway, but since a child, I faced I faced rejection. I faced neglect. I faced abandonment from my family, so-called friends, kids and people at school, teachers and all. And that made me conscious, made me self-conscious, um, made me self-critical. I didn't know my worth. It made me a people pleaser, and I feared abandonment. So I would hold on to people in my life, even ones who would hurt me. And so after facing infidelity in my marriage, I still didn't want to let go. I didn't want to let go of my marriage. I didn't want to let go of my spouse. So mentally, rejection in your marriage, it's it caused me to overthink. Um, it made me self-doubt myself and question my worth. Um, I felt like I was in competition with every female out there. Um, so then comes in anxiety and depression. And with that, isolation. That's another mental impact that you face because you feel unvalued and unaccepted. Next, emotionally, spousal rejection causes what's called emotional starvation. So then you crave love, you crave validation, you crave connection. And because I felt like I was never enough, I felt like I had to do more. I had to do more to prove myself. Spiritually, you're affected because you begin to question God. I question God because I always tried to be a good girl. I fasted and I prayed all of the time for my marriage, my family, my household. The enemy will use rejection to break your faith and to make you feel like you're unloved and tempt you into unhealthy coping mechanisms. I remember I suggested separation in my marriage, and I was crying and I was hurting, and I was trying to explain to my husband where I was mentally, because I was hurting. And I said, I feel like I'm screaming and no one is hearing me. No one can hear me. And after I suggested separation, he says to me, well, don't be gone too long, because I got options. And I will tell you that something in me snapped. Something in me snapped. And so I just so happened to get a message from an old friend asking me how I was doing. And I gave a dry and unusual answer. And so they end up asking me, well, what's wrong? Is something wrong? Now, let me give you a side note. The devil uses vulnerability to destroy your destiny. So let me add that in there. So for the first time, I started sharing what I had been going through in my marriage to this person, just to release, because I never talked about issues in my marriage. I would mention certain things to my pastor and ask for prayer. I would ask my pastor to speak with my husband, but I never divulged in everything that was going on, because I didn't want to embarrass him. So the enemy used someone to say all the things that I needed to hear at that time. As I was venting, they gave me a listening ear and a shoulder pretty much to cry on. It led to me cheating after separating in my marriage. But of course, that doesn't fix anything. And so I cried out to God, not just for healing, but for identity and wholeness. And what I want to tell you ladies on today is, God sees you. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. That's from Psalms 34:18. So when I cried out for healing and my identity, and to be whole, to be made whole, because I knew I didn't want to go throughout life broken and heartbroken and bitter and angry from the rejection, the neglect, the abandonment, the divorce, all of that. All of that is all up under rejection. I knew I didn't want to bring that into my next relationship. I knew that I didn't want my next husband to feel that baggage, me bringing that baggage into my new marriage. And so when I prayed and cried out to God for healing, God showed me, he took me back and he showed me. And he began to show me how the decisions that I made in my life stem from my brokenness from my childhood trauma. Childhood trauma shapes your decisions. It shapes the decisions that you make in your everyday life. He showed me the beginning of our relationship. And in the beginning of our relationship, there was infidelity. There was, you know, red flags that I overlooked, but I didn't know anything about red flags. I had never been taught about red flags. I had seen infidelity all my life, um, within my family. I had never seen a good marriage. I had never seen a healthy family. And so because of that, because of the childhood trauma, neglect, abandonment in my childhood, rejection, um, all that I had faced in my childhood, it shaped the way that I thought. And so with that, my decisions, the decisions that I made in my life was based off of how this box that I had lived in. I had never heard of or seen anything healthy when it came to relationships. Once God showed me, and he began to show me my brokenness. And once he began to show me my brokenness, that's when true healing began for me. When I prayed to God for healing, I was basically seeking healing from my marriage, healing from what I went through or whatever. I never dreamed of going all the way back into childhood and how my childhood, what I went through in my childhood shaped the decision for me to even enter into the relationship, the marriage, and everything else. The way that I viewed myself, uh, the way that I viewed my own worth, all of that was based off of uh, broken brokenness from my childhood. With that being said, I can encourage you all that God sees you. He sees you, and he does not want rejection to define you. Steps towards healing starts with guarding your heart. You got to guard your heart. You have to renew your mind. You have to take every negative thought captive. That's 2 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 5. You have to lean on God's love. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. That's Psalms 139 verse 14. You got to seek wise counsel and support. You got to receive coaching, therapy. You need prayer partners. I started out with therapy. I started out with therapy. Following therapy, I've done counseling. Um, and I ended up with coaching because coaching is for your future, deals with the future. So seek wise counsel and support. And then you got to stay rooted in your purpose. You can't let rejection make you lose sight of who you are. You can't let rejection make you lose sight of who you are. And I just want to say, sis, if you're struggling with rejection in your marriage, do not suffer in silence like I did. Don't do it. I've been there and I know the way out. Let's reset and reclaim your peace, your confidence, and your God-given identity. I want to invite you to follow my Instagram page. I want to invite you to follow my YouTube page, but I also want to invite you to book a session with me for coaching. Ladies, that completes our session for today. I want to say thank you for tuning in for this session. If you have any questions, any comments, please leave them below or you can message me. Stay tuned for more sessions. I have a lot more to pour into you. And I just want to say thank you again. And God bless. Bye.